So, a little of storytelling. During this year, we have been living different experiences. We went to visit our clippers in Portugal back in May, and they were showing us around, and we had the opportunity to meet the organizations that they work with every day, like in daily basis, and we saw the importance that it had to work locally with the neighborhood and directly with the people. On the other hand, we went also to Greece to visit Como, and it was also amazing to learn about their history, about all the areas that they are working in. It was huge. So we have here kind of, how can I say, the very different kind of organizations that we can find, like some that we are very new, very from just a few years of life. Economics kind of the middle with 12 years of life, and then Come that has over 25. So wow. Just going a little bit more technical now. What I wanted to present you is with the results. So I'm going to give the floor to Nora. So she will start giving us the results of the mapping study, and then we will move into the portfolio, and we will have all our partners here present, showing us about their organizations and about their tools. Okay, so Nora, the floor is yours.
Can I show my presentation?
Mm-hmm.
So nice to meet you. I'm happy to celebrate the concretization of this 8 months work. My English is not very good, but like many people French, but I try to explain, and if you don't understand, let me know, and I will repeat. So the study, the development of my presentation is a logical development. Now I'm going to introduce the challenges of the study, to reach the hypothesis, and after the methodologic results and the PREMIOS portfolio. Okay, so okay, like Laura's, no, I want to go here. Okay. Like Laura said, the challenges, the main purpose of this study was to find other similar standards or new standards model tools in Europe. So several questions emerged of this, like are there any specific tool for NGO or for the third sector? What can we learn from them? And from this brainstorming, we identified 3 approaches. So the first approach was about the object, the tools. What quality management tools are being used by the NGO in Europe? Are they the same for all contexts, sector, and territories? How they are integrated within the organization? The second approach was the subject, the organization who studied. So we wanted to understand how and why organizations with specific characteristics like the size, the scope, the source of funding, use and integrate tools within the organization. And the third approach was the system, and is oriented toward the power relations and the gender perspective. Okay. So after these 3 approaches, we enter in the hypothesis. We started this study with some assumptions based on Spanish experience. So the first, we didn't just want to collect data, but we wanted to identify a series of cases and correlation in each other. No? So the first dimension was how our organization funded. The second, how is the third sector organized, the NGO sector? And the third, how is the gender perspective integrated? So we are, the econ had a hypothesis at the start of the study, 6 hypotheses. So there was the first about public funding, the greater dependence on public funding, the greater use of quality management standard models and tools. The second was the greater economic independence and the diversification of income, the greater use of quality management tools with versatility, flexibility, and freedom to use. Okay. The third was more disorganized the NGO sector, the third sector, the less use of quality management system. And the third form, greater diverse and heterogeneous in sizes of organization, less used to standards, models, and tools. Yes. And the last about the gender perspective. No, sorry, the 5. More diversification of source of funding in the NGO sector, more differences in their organization and representativeness. And the last about the gender perspective, that quality tools in Europe don't integrate the gender perspective. It's okay?
Bro.
Do you understand?
Do you have any questions regarding this?
Yes.
Guys, more or less understood?
I just have a question regarding the first 2 hypotheses. I didn't understand them because from my point of view they contradict each other. So what do you mean? I mean, if they are dependent on public funds, they are not economically independent. So how do you?
Yes, because
What do you mean by that? I didn't understand that.
It's about the diversification, because you can have like different kind of incomes, but if your first one and biggest one comes from the public funding, it relates to the demands from the funders. It means that if how do I say this?
If the organizations are more funded by public organizations, they will have
Yes.
more quality tools.
Exactly.
Okay. And if they have more independency and diversification of incomes, they will also use more
Yes.
tools.
different tools, no?
Yes.
With more flexibility, no? Another
In the first one you
types
have to
of
fit,
tools.
no, into the government one. Into the first hypothesis you have to fit into the government, no?
Exactly. Yes, and follow the requirements
Yeah.
that they are demanded.
Okay.
Is it more or less?
I don't really understand. Sorry.
The first one, the first one is more focused on the demands from the public funders, and the second one doesn't talk that much about the public or not, but I mean, there can be also one private funder that has specific requirements, but if you have the diversity of them, then you require more flexibility. That's the point.
Yes.
Okay. So you mean if the income the funding is diversified, then you are more economically independent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So,
Just one question.
yes.
So this hypothesis, so you were testing this hypothesis were
Yes.
true or not,
Yes.
Exactly.
and the reference is econ model, no?
The reference is our understanding of the third. I mean, we have experience in the third sector in Spain, so from that perspective, this is what we imagined or what we thought it would be. So just to see if what we thought was true or not.
Because this is the case in Spain.
Yes.
But the last one that talks about gender, you just say that quality tools in Europe do not integrate a gender perspective. This was just a thought.
Yes, in general. I mean, all of them are thoughts. We don't really know. Yes, we assume to have a
But
starting point.
because the one of icon doesn't integrate gender perspective.
Not yet.
So that was like
Yes.
If we are bad, the others must be bad.
No, we just didn't know what was out there, so we thought, okay, we need some place to start from. What do we think there is out there, and see if it was true or not. Just as a starting point.
So, can speak about the methodology. And the first step in the research was to make a methodology proposal in accord with the deadline and time scales. So we set a time frame of 8 months from March to November, and with 4 main phases, no steps. First was to reading secondary source. The second, the survey, the mailing survey. And the third, the interview period. I think that many people here have participated to interview in the survey. And the last phase was analysis of results.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Who did you send all these surveys to?
Who?
Yeah?
We had. It's okay. We collected a lot of information via internet, like we googled information.
Organizations or?
Yes, yes.
The organization.
900 organizations?
Yes, 900 organizations were contacted.
Okay.
Not all of them replied
Sent
first.
Yes,
Sent out. Sent.
yeah, but in all countries in Europe?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we will go into that.
See, not in all the country, but see, many country. It was important for the survey that they are a representative of all the country of interest, or the sector, and of typology of organization, like first level, second level. Yes. And yes, how many countries? I don't remember, but
Over 40.
Yes.
Yes. The thing is that with the approach that we had with this study was not to be scientifically super strict. Was just to have a look around and see what is going on out there, just to take a little bit of the idea. No? So we didn't know what was going to happen with the results. So out of the 900 organizations, for example, we found out that only 74 of them actually filled in the form, like the survey. So, of course, this data is not representative. We're not meaning here to set as an end scientific results, because we know that we don't have the resources to do that. And it was not the approach, actually. We just wanted to start digging into the topic.
so you have in the reports, the annexes, are the question of the survey in the interview. So it was a survey, and from the results of this survey, we contacted with 18 participants for an interview. It was important for us 3 criteria. We chose these participants for together. Organization using quality management standard models and tools. The second criteria was organization with knowledge of quality management standards, models and tools. And the third, organization that are territorial references and that could share with us a broader vision of the sector and the tools they use. Okay. So this was the methodology, and then we can enter on the results.
What do you mean by
Yes.
territorial references?
Territorial, it's like an organization that's third level. For us, it's represent an organization who yes, third level, second level.
Like an umbrella.
The umbrella, yes. Okay. So enter in the results. It's firstly to present the main results on the basis of the key dimension, organization, tools, and power engine. It's very small, no? You can't read, no? I can't make a zoom. About the organization, we can highlight a high dependence of most organizations on public funds. 80% are part of platform and networks. and in the most of the organization, decision making is taken by women. No? About the tools, 18% use quality management, and the majority using tools or code of conduct. And it's interesting to highlight that several platforms or networks have created a specific standard or tool, and the majority of the organization are not certified. And about power and gender, we can highlight that a largely women's composition in the organization, and that the gender perspective is an area identified, but it's like pending, you know. Yes. It's okay. You understand?
Is it coming from the interviews or from the survey?
The interview. No, the survey. This is yes. This is quantitative result. Yes.
Thank you very much. I have one question regarding the certified. What do you mean by the term certified?
Yes. You can.
In this context, we call certified to the norms and standards that have a certification in the end that you need to pass an audit, I think, and you have to keep it in like a stamp, something like that.
Like national certification.
Or the ISO 9001, or there are different kind of certifications. But
And so when you say decision making is taken by an equal woman, which is they are the general directors, or they are making decision, but from where?
Yes, for coordination. Yes, director.
Okay.
Or
The board.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can see the hypothesis. So the validation of the hypothesis. So the first hypothesis about the dependence on public funding. The organization surveyed reaching 55 with more than half of their funding coming from public funds. Okay. So we can highlight that many points, many reflections, that the administrations need which could materialize in the adoption of determinate quality system and standard. That and establish uniform criteria for access to public funds. You know? So the correlation between it's validates. Do you understand this?
So the hypothesis is correct. The initial hypothesis is correct.
yes, that's the conclusion.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a suggestion, the last point that you had? Establish uniform criteria for access to funds. Is that a suggestion after you made is that the conclusion, or is that something that that is done? This is my question. Is this a result of your survey, or is this a suggestion that you are making based on, are you saying, for example, ministries should introduce uniform criteria? Is this a suggestion, or is this something, or are you saying organizations use uniform criteria to access funds? I don't know.
Yes, it's like an explication, no? Of of these results.
Okay, so it's a description. So this means that
You can see the various casos.
that uniform criteria are established. This is what you mean? Or?
Sí, que hubo varios casos que hemos destacado un poco 3 puntos de por qué se valida esta hipótesis a partir de interview y de...
Okay, so
I need translate.
the conclusion is that we validated the hypothesis because we found different things, and one of them was that there was awareness in different countries and established.
Yes.
And for the second one, what do you mean by endowing first sector entities that access public funds? This one I don't understand. What do you mean? What is the connection with the hypothesis?
But in the end, the organizations use the quality management tools because it gives them legitimacy in front of the public funders.
So in a sense, is it compulsory to have this kind of tools?
In some countries it was compulsory, in others it was more like a recommendation, and it gave them access to other fundings that if not they wouldn't have access to. So yeah, that was more or less the point. Let's check this one.
Okay, the second hypothesis too is validate now that the majority of the organization have more than 3 different sources, and they use quality management standard. Okay. And the third about the organization of the NGO sector, it's to validate, it's also validate. The majority take part of network and use models. Okay,
So a kind of network of the NGOs improves the use of these quality management systems.
yes,
The existence of
several,
NGOs network.
yes, several network, no?
Yeah, what we found out is that when we have a third sector that is more organized into platforms or into different levels that group themselves, they normally have more use of quality standards because normally the umbrella also guides them into doing this or that, so it's more common. Yeah, I don't know.
And also because qualities request sometimes to be part of the
Yeah,
network
exactly.
or platform.
Yes.
It's a must.
Sometimes. Sometimes it's compulsory to be a member.
And do you have information if these kind of quality systems, they are established as a self-assessment system, or is they are externally audited to comply to this system?
It depends a lot. Depends a lot on the country, depends a lot on the umbrella organization, so we couldn't go one by one.
Very different, I suppose.
Yeah, the diversity is huge.
And for the hypothesis 4 and 5, we can't validate the hypothesis because we need to analyze, we should make a previous study of the third sector on each territory, each country, and we don't have time for this, no?
No, and it was not the scope of our
of the study
in the end. So
yeah. So the 4 and the 5 we didn't. Oh, sorry. Okay. I need to. And for the last hypothesis about gender, the gender perspective, it's not included in the quality system, and it's not considered like a factor, no, of quality in the majority of fields.
of course there are exceptions. This is the general overview that we found out in Europe. But the few exceptions that we found out, and this was surprising to me as well, was that a few of them mentioned it in some of the points within the tools, but we didn't find one that integrated the gender perspective in all the management areas. So maybe there are some that we couldn't find. We're not saying that they don't exist, we're saying that we couldn't find one that integrated it in all the management areas.
I was just wondering about your definition of quality tool in the survey, because I'm curious. Since so many use quality tools, I'm thinking if is it also just that you need to register it, as an example, how many users you help, or is it more than that? Or do you have a definition?
Yeah, we'll have the quality definition for the third sector, and it's the one that we used. So everything that was fitting into that definition, we included it in the.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's mainly all that is related to management areas within the organization. So transparency, good governance, all of them. So we try to be as open as possible. Yes.
22 quality system. You have two visualization options, no? Or in the report on the web, on the Econ website, or on online map. So you can go out. I can. No, sorry. No, we don't have the.
Here.
Okay, this is a report.
It's too long to show it here, so don't worry, we're not going to do that. But if you go down to more, like around here, yeah, here are the different las fichas. Yeah, this is more or less what you will find. We'll have one sheet for each of the tools. So we put more or less, still in Spanish, we are translating to English, so it will be available soon. So where is it used, and if it's specific for NGOs, and which kind of management areas does it cover, and yeah, it's kind of a briefly summarized thing. So we can see the map now?
Yes, but we can see on today's map because it's not visible. But on the Econ website, you have a link.
Yeah, it's supposed to be here, yeah. But the security of this internet network doesn't allow us to enter our map. So yeah, security matters. Anyway, if later you can access the website through your phone, I checked it with mine and it's available there. So yeah, or why don't you come back home? So whatever.
I think that, yes. At the beginning I said that the challenge was to find a similar tool, but also another challenge is create learnings, no, for the Econ and the partnership. So I think that it's a time of learning for the main conclusions of the study. If you want any questions.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. This was more or less the study. The conclusions that we found out was more or less the ones that we covered in the hypothesis, but also coming back to the questions that we made in the beginning. Was there another organization like Econ in Europe? That question is still unanswered, but what we found out, and we are sure about it, is that there are other entities worried about quality and that are working on management systems for NGOs and that have put into practice a lot of guidelines and other even norms that we have, like the Partos 9001 that they also developed. So the conclusion is that we're not the only ones doing this, and that's great to hear. So now we're gonna come.
Thank you.
You're okay. So that being said, okay. So now I wanted to present you with the results of this first edition of our portfolio. And for that, I want to show you that this year we're having 5 different tools. One is the Econ's NGO quality standard that we all know. So as I already presented to all our European partners, and I already presented to our Spanish counterparts, it was meaningless to show it again here. So we're going to move directly to it. Do you want?
I have a question.
Sure.
How is program or project or sound is funded? Like who found this investigation?
Ta-da! Yeah, it's okay. This program is by the Ministry of Social Rights and Education.
Hi.
My name is Catarina, and I work at CLIP, an organization in Lisbon, Portugal. It's my colleague. So we are a non-profit based in the neighborhood in the center of Lisbon, a neighborhood that has some social issues, but we are there since 2012. We made this year 10 years, so yay! Our mission is to empower and boost the organizations from the third sector in Portugal. We have a lot of partners in Lisbon and other points of the country. We intend to be an innovative and creative organization, and our values are like credibility, trust, and flexibility. We have a different management model. Our board is composed by other organizations. So we work in partnership always, not just because we have a board with other organizations, but because we work with other organizations all the time. So to give you the examples, our services are trainings. We have formations and workshops in like a diversity of areas, like accountability for NGOs, communication for NGOs. So we want to capacitate these organizations for them to make a better job with their public. We do consulting too in these specific areas, like accountability again, because it's a very struggle team in the organizations in Portugal. We have Boost. It's a service where we help the organizations to create projects to present to financiers, funds, yeah, public or private, because in Portugal the third sector functions this way. Not all the organizations have support from the state. I mean, most of them don't have, so they have to apply to funds, public or private, and we help them to create these projects to increase the chances for them to win the funding. So we have a resource sharing platform too. It's in our website. So organizations can solicitate some items that we have there. We have coffee break kits, sound system, yeah, sound systems. So these are materials that are a bit expensive, and through fundings we got to buy them and to borrow to these organizations, to a social coin. We use a social coin that doesn't have money, like it's not, doesn't cost anything to the organizations to use these items, so we share this. It's like circular economy. We have a resource alert. It's like every week we send to these organizations that are our partners the fundings that are available for that month, or that are like going to happen now, and we explain the fundings to them in a simpler way, and then help them to make the license. We have conversations with glass. It's a bit strange to translate like everything. So, we basically get around in like a circle like this in an informal way. We drink wine and eat cheese and talk about social themes from the third sector that can be suggested by anyone, like our partners or anyone can suggest the theme, and then dynamize the meeting. It's very nice. We have newsletter too. It's a monthly thing that we send to our partners with news from CLIP and from who is around us, other organizations. These are our projects now. We have 4 funded projects. The Qualis is the one that we used here, that Nicole is going to explain later. Then we have Alternativa Med. Doesn't have a translation, so it's in Portuguese. It's about social economy and circular economy. this is how we were able to boost our platform. We bought like other materials that organizations needed. They told us what they needed, and then we bought the things and did some workshops about circular economy too. Idealização, it's a project that we intend to capacitate the new leaderships in the community, because we are based on a community that has a lot of needs. We try, and as a lot of organizations too, we try to search for other leaderships and do some training of the young leaders in that area. Then we have diversity. It's a new project that we intend to capacitate organizations that work with migrants in the center of Lisbon. And now we talk about colleagues with Nicole.
Thank you, Catalina.
Thank you.
Yeah,
this
theory
is
is
not
not
the
the
base
base.
Okay, so first of all, I want to say that Qualish was like a dream for us. We wanted to create a tool to help organizations to be recognized by their jobs, because we feel like in Portugal, social organizations are not very recognized. The public sector doesn't see organizations like partners. They see like the ones who are always asking us for money to do things with the poor ones. So it's a bit complicated, and also the organizations that gets more funding is the bigger ones, the ones that everyone knows. So we kind of have the dream to end this and to give equal opportunity to all organizations to say, I do a better job, so I deserve your funding, I deserve to be your partner, and I do a good job and I know what I'm doing. Because there is like this myth in Portugal that social organizations don't have quality management. They do things just for doing it. They don't know what they are exactly doing. So we kind of want to break this cycle and say, okay, we are social organizations, we work for the process to help people, but we also have like quality standards, and we are not doing things just by doing. So that was like the main idea who generates the idea of Qualish. Quality is like a Latin word for quality, so it wasn't very original, but it was what came up at that time. And we start to search what other people are doing in quality, because in Portugal we didn't know anything besides the ISOs 9001, and they aren't really fit for the smaller organizations. We mainly work with smaller and medium organizations, so this wasn't fitted for them, so we need to find other things. And we find Econ. It was really nice. So we talk a lot with Anna, because Laura wasn't there yet. So we talk about a lot with Anna. Anna sent us all their materials, and Qualis is very inspired on the Econ norm, and we want to thank you again for all the support and the inspiration that you gave us. So now I will explain a little bit. So Qualis was first of all like an experimental project. Now we are in the other phase, but I will explain you later. So in this experimental phase, our funder was a bank, a public bank in Portugal, so they funded this project. Like I was saying, this idea came out of two main issues. One, the associations have a lot of financial difficulties. They have a lot of common challenges. All of them say, when you ask Portuguese non-profit organization, what is your main challenge? There are two: money and people who wants to work and wants to be volunteer and wants to be involved. So the challenges are really common, but they also have a lot of potential, because they do a lot with less money, with small money. And they all need tools and tips to do a more effective management. And also, like I was saying, they don't feel that their work is being recognized, and it isn't. So it was one way. For the other way, Flip also works with companies. So they were telling us that they really want to help social sector, but they want to do it with a consciously an effective way. They don't want to do it just by doing it, give money or paint some walls or do something like that. So they were saying to us, we don't know the social organizations. They send us a project, we know the project, but we don't know really what is the organization, what they do. And we would like to, because there is no guarantee that we are investing our money in something that will have social impact. So going from these two based ideas, we try to find a project that can help both associations and companies to have a solution for these problems. And for us, the solution was Qualish, to have these two beneficiaries. For one side, associations, to strengthen their work, to empower them. And for the other side, we have the companies and the community, because smaller organizations do a better job to communities, so they are also impacted by that too. On this experimental project, we work with 8 pilot organizations that applied for this project, and they were mainly small and medium-sized, like I was telling you, that our main focus. So what we really want to do with this project was to strengthen the work of the organizations, to increase their capacity to work, to support the companies in this task who identify the associations who have good management practices, and also, like I was saying in the beginning, to create a fair system. Like, I have this stamp, this quality, I have this quality criteria, and I'm a small organization, and I can be a big organization and also have this quality criteria. So I don't have it just because I'm big, so we can level everyone. That was the main idea. And we do that through creating a certificate, like a stamp, we call it stamp, of quality for the associations. Yeah.
Just one question.
Yeah.
The companies, what kind of companies? Is that companies working with the associations in different areas?
What we did, mainly associations ask for help to the companies, and they fund them, giving some money for some activity or doing some activity in their...
So it's not private funds, it is companies that also give money?
But also we have private funds. It's like a mix, because we have, for instance, the bank who funded Qualish, it's a private funder. So we have like a mix of funders. So it's because what we felt talking with Anna and Laura is that in Spain there is more like a standard. In Portugal, no. Every fund asks for different things to the organizations, and the organizations have to be flexible and match some criteria for one fund and other criteria for the other one, so it's a bit messy. So it helps to establish like a general criteria to everyone to work for that. So the project had 2 main areas. One was the development of this quality stamp, because it didn't exist, and then working with the associations. So for this, the creation of this stamp, we did a survey with companies, private funders, public funders, and other associations, because we don't want to be the company saying what we need to do. We need to think together what we should do. So we did this survey, then we draw like a technical specification with the criteria, and we create the referential of the quality management of Polish. I will show you later. And then we have the other area, that is the work with the associations, because, okay, we want to recognize them, but the main focus for us is to empower them. So it's not like, okay, you don't have this criteria, you don't have the stamp, bye-bye. No, it's like, you don't have this criteria, so let's work together for you to achieve this criteria and have the stamp in the future. So it's like a process. So we start with the diagnose, we apply this criteria to the associations and see what the areas that they are already doing in a good way and the ones who need improvement. Then we do workshops, trainings, mentoring with them, and after a year we evaluate them again on the criteria, and hopefully they will improve because of our training and our mentoring, and they will have the stamp. So the project had like 5 steps. I don't go inside this because I already explained a little bit. I will just go to the final stage, because after this process they pass to the capacity. We have to evaluate them and to decide them if they have or haven't the stamp. We felt that we shouldn't do that because we were working with the companies, and when we like one, with the associations, sorry, we like one better than the other ones. It's normal, we are people, we like more some people. So we created like a evaluation committee, yeah. So we have like one company, one university, other associations, and there were like 5 people who see all the work that the association produced during the project and decide if they have the criteria or not to have the quality stamp. We finalized with 5 organizations from the 8 because many of them drop out of the process because it's not the simplest process because you need to work and to invest on that. And from the 5 to reach the end, 3 got the stamp. So I think it's a good ratio. And now for finishing, I have here the main areas, the criteria that we look for in the stamp. And the first one is like transparency. For example, having on their website available the information of their financial report, their mission, their vision. So it's really important for the organizations to be transparent. Then we have a communication criteria where we have 2 parts, like an internal and external. And for example, the criteria is to have 2 internal communication channels or to have 1 external communication channel. Then we have the human resources area, where we evaluate, for instance, if they are giving internal or external training to the human resources, if they have some performance evaluation and other things. That's just examples. Then we have a criteria of financial sustainability, where we see the financial budget and the statement of the accounts, if they have any debts or something like that. We have also a partnership area where we see if the responses and the projects of the organization are developed in the partnership, if they made part of networks like we were talking before. Then we have an area called organization where we see how the activity plans and the activity reports and how they do the services. Then we have about the answer, the services, the projects that the organization do. We evaluate the innovation, the experience, the history of the associations. And finally, we have the monitoring and evaluation. That is the hardest one for organizations, at least in Portugal, where we see if they have evaluation methodologies, if they collect data to evaluate their impact. And it's the hardest one, I can tell you. So we have these criteria, and in this experimental project that we did, human resources and monitoring and evaluation were the hardest ones, where we worked more with them to develop these areas on the organization. So, and communication a bit also, but the main ones were these 2. And after this, we finished the experimental project. We made an assessment about how it all worked, and we applied for another funding from actually, I think it's an Europe funding by active citizens from Liechtenstein and Norway, and we applied to that fund, and now we are implementing the final version of Qualish, where we learn what we need to learn with this experimental one, and we are starting now working with 10 new organizations in this process. So we are very excited to see what's going to happen. Yeah.
Have you planned to work about advocacy with companies and public institutions to recognize this kind of stamp? Qualities?
Yeah, on this new project, we have a partnership with the Association of Companies, and they are working with us to present this certification to companies and funders and to promote networking sessions between the participant association and the companies, because it's important to create a vision together, because for companies it's very important that the organization have social impact, but what is social impact? And it can be different things for associations and for companies, so we need to sit together and establish what it is. And companies sometimes they don't have a clear vision what is the work of the organization, so it's important to put them together at the same table and to discuss these things. So in the experimental project we only did 3 sessions of networking, but now we will work more deeply with companies to explain what is the stamp, what is the certification, what an organization who has this has behind. So yeah, it's a work in progress.
We intend to do this not only with companies but also with the public sector too, not just with
and the public funders too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
is my colleague Silvia Macarez is also here. We both represent MOOC. Let me start by sharing with you a few words on who we are and how we've been working since 1977. Okay, we're one of the oldest civil society organizations in Greece. Significant impact on supporting the vulnerable on the field and also through project-led initiatives. Our mission is to create a positive impact on the society through the implementation of interventions, actions, and providing assistance on the field where it's needed to those that need it. Indicatively, we have through 3 group houses where we offer support to the mentally ill, and also a day care center in Piraeus where support the institutionalization of mental health patients and help them to reintegrate safely and effectively back to society. However, this is only one facet of our work. We're not only dealing with mental health issues, we deal with a very broad spectrum of social aspects, of social topics. People are at the center of our attentions, both through providing social services and providing equal access to educational opportunities. As previously discussed and mentioned, we strive to turn ideas into pilots, and we do this through our project-funded work. We have a very wide network of stakeholders across the EU, not only national level, but also at EU level. We work with various DGs and ministries and regions and public authorities across the EU to commonly work on addressing identified issues at their territories. And in all our actions, we aim to have an evidence of the positive impact that our proposed actions will bring to the field, to the societies. And upon this backdrop, our presence here will unfold. And what I mean is that with regards to quality management of NGOs, we have focused on a very thin slice of the quality management process. Quality management is a huge thing, it's a multi-layered framework, and we have opted to choose on a very specific aspect of it, which is impact assessment. How NGOs can prove that their envisioned action will indeed have a positive impact on the society. They will be able to have data evidence to prove their claim to the funding organizations, so that they will be able to more easily access those funds and implement the proposed actions. The tool that we're going to be presenting today is Archimedes tool, Archimedes impact assessment tool. This has also been funded by EA grants, active citizenship funds. So this has been tested on the ground by 10 public authorities in Greece in their own projects, in neighborhoods and communities in Greece, and has helped data-backed decisions, data-backed up propositions and decisions being taken on a quantitatively informed decision-making mechanism. So let me also consult my notes here. So the role of CSOs and NGOs in societies is multifaceted and multidimensional. In their evolution, CSOs and NGOs have been covering a wide range of activities, and in a nutshell, they fill the gaps left by the state, providing services on an ad hoc or on a permanent basis, and being in direct interaction with local communities in which they operate, and through listening to social concerns and challenges, they emerge as a focal point for the state and for public authorities in order for the latter to make well-informed decisions based on the feedback that they will receive from the CSOs. To do so though, CSOs face specific challenges. We live in a very volatile environment. We have been facing recession, have been facing economic instability, very recently limitation of funding resources from national funding protocols and European funding protocols. We have been facing social challenges, pandemics, wars, migration, refugee crisis. And in this continuously shifting, volatile environment, socio-economic environment, CSOs and NGOs need not only to showcase their value, but need to evidence prove it, need to have the quantitative data to prove and to justify that their proposed social impact is positive and can have a value for local communities. And to do so, they need to measure it. CSOs need to measure and evaluate the social footprint so as to regain trust in society. However, measuring social impact, especially in CSOs and NGOs, can face significant limitations, with more important ones being the very nature of the activities and the lack of structured and reliable tools, as has been identified by both previous organizations who have presented here. The current state of play, at least in Greece, is that almost 40% of NGOs do not follow a results recording program. They don't record their successes. And the fact that they lack know-how hinders their effective operation. And this has been reported by almost half of NGOs operating in Greece. More than half of NGOs lack to effectively communicate across audiences their successes. And almost 60% of NGOs do not report results due to lack of resources. They don't have adequate human resources, they don't have knowledge infrastructure, and they don't have access to data. And this is where the Archimedes tool and its latest variant and improvement, the Reframing Welfare Index, comes into play. Archimedes tool has gathered a set of data across Greece from all Greek regions so as to allow an effective measurement of proposed interactions across various areas of interventions. In this sense, Archimedes measures social impact through extrapolating multi-level data to deliver context-specific elasticities of different social fabrics in relations to different proposed or foreseen policies and programs to be implemented in respective communities, that is. Archimedes understands that as the world changes by new technologies, the need to safeguard social and solidarity-based economy is key. In this sense, data-backed social impact assessment has emerged as a precondition for any well-informed decision-making as regards investments or funding. To this end, the Archimedes architecture utilizes large numbers of evaluation criteria per index, per territory, upon which a well-informed assessment of the expected social return on investment of projects, actions, and investments versus the ongoing social net value can be extrapolated. Ultimately, Archimedes aims to contribute in alleviating deep-rooted beliefs on the importance of social value, and thus further promote social impact assessment as a precondition for well-informed actions or initiatives from NGOs, CSOs, and also donors and investors. MOB has developed a training program addressed at CSOs and NGOs, which provides information on the use of the tool, along with guidelines on how to leverage this data-driven reporting to carry out evidence-based advocacy actions towards institutions, funders, and investors. MOB has also upscaled the Archimedes approach in a new impact assessment tool, naming Reframing Welfare Index. This is the basic structure of Reframing Welfare Index. Reframing Welfare Index factors in baseline data from across all European regions at NATS2 level. So this is, if I remember correct, almost 273 regional authorities from across EU. And this data cover a very broad spectrum of areas of intervention, extrapolating data from 21 weighted indices over 168 respective criteria. The four main pillars of intervention are just societies, secured livelihoods, greener nature future, and sustainable local economies. And then the 21 indices are those leverages running around the main areas of intervention. So if you want, let's say, to address the broader, the overarching, ontologically overarching topic of sustainable local economies, and specifically if you want to see how a proposed measure or a proposed policy or a proposed funding would further improve the baseline index of current innovation, then you would run over to the background indexes of innovation, see what's their respective scores across its index, and through an algorithm which runs at the back of the program, you can measure what kind of improvement you can have on this specific index if you apply so many thousands of euros of funding that would benefit so many thousands of end users for a project or through a project running so many months. So this is the basic architecture of Archimedes. It can basically support data justified decisions on funding, and it can help NGOs to go to their funders with a data-driven claim on what could be the positive impact of the proposed action.
Thank you.
Any questions? No. There is a...
Yes, it's really interesting. I would be interested to see behind.
Yes.
So
I'm
how
sure.
you
I'm sure.
collect, who is deciding what data to collect and who's analyzing the data that you can,
I'm sure.
this would be interesting. So if you have something, if you brought something or you have a link.
There is a link. I think I have shared the link with you with the Archimedes tool and the reframing welfare framework, reframing welfare index. A specific set of the algorithm is not readily publicly available at this stage. We also work on it, we also fine-tune it, and I'm not sure the extent of IPR involved on this subject. However, the data that have been gathered by us on a regional level, these are publicly available, and sources, of course, are publicly available and to be shared.
Yes, please. Thank you, very interesting. Just to share with you, the Netherlands, there is the Central Bureau for Statistics, and they are composing a set of indicators aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals, and they are going to measure the social welfare in the Netherlands. So that has never been done. We have as you all have, we have our national income indicator, and financial indicator, and they are broad. And it's very similar to what you.
Amazing.
It's governmental driven. Yeah.
Great. Let's talk about it then, how this could perhaps leverage each other efforts.
Thank you, very interesting.
On this one.
Yeah. And I like the picture very much.
Yes, there is loads of work behind this. Obviously, there is a link to it. So you can. There is also a model where you can play with numbers. There are specific criteria upon which you can type in values and see what the outcome would be on a specific intervention and a specific region. This is readily available for the Greek context, and we work for it for the European context, and which should be available also.
Yes. The link at this sentence is already in the website. You can access it in the tools. So it's all there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, after the first two presentations, I'm going to be referred to Art. That is the director of PREMIOS. So, please.
Thank you very much, Laura. And before I start, I first want to congratulate ICON for this project. I think it's a very helpful project and very interesting with a high potential. I was very hesitant, and therefore I also want to congratulate ICON with Laura, because she has been very inspiring and persistent in to join this. So well done. Yeah, I'm director of PARTOS. PARTOS is a Dutch branch organization, an association of development organizations, mid-sized, large-sized development organizations. And before I go ahead with PARTOS, I just briefly describe you the NGO landscape in the Netherlands. As you know, the Netherlands is a very flat country, but our NGO landscape is very diverse. We have about 80,000 NGOs. Part of it is kind of company-related NGOs, partly criminal NGOs, to avoid tax, because that's one of the outstanding services of the Netherlands to facilitate tax evasions and illicit funding flows. So the tax authorities made a division. If you want to be acknowledged as an NGO and get some subsidy or public support, then you have to be registered as a societal, purpose-driven organization. And then I thought we just saw 4 criteria on NGOs: transparency and so on. So you have to comply with a number of criteria, and then you're registered by the tax authorities as a societal, purpose-driven organization. So that's the minimum level of kind of quality requirements in the Netherlands. And then, of course, there's many associations, as we have one for Development Cooperation. There's also one in the Netherlands for groups working in the Netherlands. PARTOS is, well, we have a 106-member organization, like the Red Cross, that's the same here, but also we might know names like Oxfam. Well, anyway, I'm not going to name all, but it's a quite a diverse group, from nature conservation to action groups like Friends of the Earth. Milieu Defense, you might know, do have a court case against Shell. That's maybe not, you don't know the organization, but was, well, this kind of groups are there too. And there is a lot of basic development organizations that only work in developing countries. Our mission is, well, just to work together for a better world, but with a focus on the most vulnerable groups and regions. So that's what distinguishes us from other NGOs in the Netherlands. And we have 3 key areas of activity: lobby, advocacy, communication, and quality, learning, and innovation. Well, quality, that's what is all about today, but also we do a lot of learnings on all kinds of topics, on diversification of funding, but also on how to decentralize. And a lot of organizations originated in the Netherlands, but more and more they focus and they orient to work in other countries, and they leave the Netherlands, or they have a small supportive organization. This kind of learning is taking place. There's also a lot of learning on, we always combine it, planning, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. So there's a lot of exchange on societal impact by outcome harvesting, storytelling, so not just by measuring in a quantitative way, but also in qualitative way. So there's a lot of exchange with the members. In fact, my own team is just a small team of 12 persons, and we don't do anything. We let the work be done by the members. So we facilitate them, bring them together, we initiate things, we catalyze things, but they do the work. So that's one of our strategies. They do the work, and we focus on things that they can't do in themselves. So we can do it better because we work together. On innovation, it's a kind of container word, of course, innovation. So we do work with our members, but also external parties on developing new tools like a power awareness tool, the differences of power in relationships, but also new organizational forms. Many of the NGOs are corporate entities with a hierarchy. But there is also swarms and movements and so on. So we are also trying to understand how the mechanisms of movements work and how NGOs can support them, can learn from them, and can establish synergies. So that's what is about innovation. One aspect of innovation is also identifying difficult topics which you don't like racism in NGOs, like our colonial thinking in NGOs. And that brings me to the topic I was asked to speak about, and that's about, is it the right one or the left one?
I think both.
Let me just try.
The right one.
No.
I'm gonna use this.
Oh, sorry.
Here. It's okay. No worries.
Yeah, that's it. So that's on integrity. By the way, where it was said that gender, we have also a code of conduct where gender is a very strong pillar under it, that it is kind of mandatory to integrate it in all your works, but that's the code of conduct. To become a member, you have to abide with the code of conduct. We also have a PARTOS 9001 based on the ISO 9001, and PARTOS 9001 is specifically elaborated for development cooperation, where power thinks ownership, gender, but also not gender just in the narrow set of gender aspects of women and men, but also of diversity, the LGBTQ plus movement, but also diversity in age or of national background. So that's also integrated in PARTOS 9001. Integrity, that was new to us in 2018. You might, well, we all know about floodings in the world, but there was one flood which was a social flood. It was the Me Too wave in 2017, 2018. And also that touched our sector. There were a lot of organizations that did it for everyone, and also myself, I'm not holy. So we do make a lot of mistakes, but the number of the organizations really did quite bad work in a number of countries. That came to the surface, and the government, the politicians, the journalists, and the organization itself really was a big uproar. And I was very happy by it, because I was pleading for a policy on integrity, and many people said, yes, it's important, but it's not urgent. So there was no action on it. But then, because of this uproar and the whole Me Too movement, people started to take it serious. And that's where we could start to work on a system for integrity. And integrity, you might know, there's no one from the UK here. Eh? And in the Anglo-Saxon countries, they call it sexual exploitation and abuse. And we think it's only one aspect of integrity. It's important, it's our behavior, how we relate to other people, and it can be on that issue on sexual relations. And but we also consider it as a broader aspect. Integrity is also a financial aspect. You know, things of fraud, which is undermining integrity. But also misuse of power is an aspect of integrity. Bullying people. When you are in a superior organization, you're bullying the people or cheating people. Yeah? Or as a big organization, like in companies, you can really kind of put pressure on other organizations to do what you want them to do. That's also misuse of power. And we thought, well, this is for us what integrity is. And that was really, and I'm very thankful for this wave of Me Too, not for itself, of course, because it has a very good reason that it started, but also because of its wider implications. And it really helped us to convince our members to work, okay, there I go, yes, to work on an integrity system. And that is again covering these areas of interpersonal relations. And wow, just to give you an example, if I put my arm around somebody's shoulders, it can be a gesture, a very warm gesture, but somebody else could really feel uncomfortable with it. And so that relates also to integrity. This is not sexual abuse, there's a lot of grey areas. And anyway, so we started to develop an integrity system using a lot of experts from all over the world. And the integrity system has two pillars. One is the compliance practice, and you know all about compliance because it's a part of quality management. The other pillar is moral learning, ethical learning, which is at least as important, maybe even more important. The compliance system consists of measures, positions, actions that prevent integrity infringements. So that can be a code of conduct which contains values, do's and don'ts, but also measures if somebody does something wrong. So this is, and also prevent the system is also kind of having an officer or somebody, not an officer, but somebody responsible for integrity. Like you might have, I don't know the word in English, a trust person, is that the word? Trust?
Yeah.
Is that the word? Trust person?
Really?
Okay. So we also have, we have a trust person, but we also have an integrity person because it's not fully the same. And so this also all helps and risk analysis. So when you have your code of conduct with the values, the norms, the do's and don'ts, then you can make together, preferably as an organization or with your partners, kind of risk assessment. Where are the areas where we are most vulnerable? You might know in humanitarian aid, people go to disaster areas, disaster-prone areas. It's a big chaos. People are not under control, they are out of their families, so there is no social control either. So that's really a sensitive area, that's a risk area. So this is outside, but also in your organization, you might have sensitive areas or moments. A moment when two people are together in one place, for example. And so this is a very important part of the preventive cycle. Secondly, there is the enforcement aspect. So that if something goes wrong, what do you do then? And you know from the media, and it's, I think globally, if there is something wrong and it leaks out, then the person who's assumed to have done something is being punished already before it's proven. And the other side, the person who was the victim, is also being treated as a victim, which many victims don't like at all. So you need a very, very prudent investigation what is happening. Confidential as much as possible and very prudent. So and then only then you can take your measures. And the measure can be something, a fine or well, whatever to the protruder. But measures also should be related to the person who are the victim, which is very, very important. And that's very often forgotten. There's one thing I would like to, maybe you know the term zero tolerance that relates to integrity. We don't accept any infringement on integrity, which is the biggest mistake you can make, zero tolerance. You could say, yes, zero tolerance for non-acting. That's good. But zero tolerance, if there is zero tolerance, no one dares to share his or her doubts. And as I said, integrity also has a lot of grey areas where we don't know. We have to learn about these grey areas. And if there is zero tolerance when you do something wrong, your head is cut off, then no one shows up the head. And so there to support, and we support our members. The more issues we identify and we report on, the happier we are. And it is very vulnerable to the public, to the journalists, because as you know, if something turns up, you're vulnerable. At the same time, it's the best way to really work on integrity, to get issues, and to signal issues, to tell about it, and to work on it. So that's about the compliance system, which you, as I said, you know all about compliance in quality systems. The other part, as I said, is for me much more important, and that's about moral learning. On a personal level, I gave already that example, putting your arm around something. If no one tells you about it, you never notice, if you're not empathic. So that's on a personal level, but also on an organizational level. I used to head a kind of non-profit company. We had a huge program, European funded, in Indonesia, but to get permission to work in Indonesia, we had to get permission by the Ministry of Planning, Bappenas it was called. And to get that permission, we had to fund his daughter studying in the Netherlands. That's just plain corruption. But the program was so important, so we were really what to do. It's the same like if you have been traveling in certain countries, you want to go from A to B, and there is a military person standing or a policeman standing and say, well, your passport is not correct. If you pay, then you can go to B. You want to go to B, so you pay, but you're supporting kind of fraud or bribery system. These are dilemmas. And if you don't discuss these dilemmas, then they kind of rot in yourself, but also in your group. So that's about moral learning, to bring that to the open, to be very open and vulnerable, and learn about it. And yes, I'm for finalizing it. Yeah. So that's what moral learning is, and we think it's a very important aspect for the organization. There are methodologies, and the outcomes of the learning, you know the term jurisprudence. It's jurisprudence, so this is about mores, norms, values, and the outcome, that's what you put in your code of conduct. One last note. This is about internal organization, the sanity, hygiene in the organization. But we know integrity is being challenged worldwide, societal. Social media, fake news, morbid complot thinking is undermining the integrity of politicians, of scientists, of journalists, and also of you. So I also would like to call upon you, also as NGOs, as societal work organizations, to work on the integrity in the society of the challenge. That's what I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Lily and I'm working for VENRO, which is the Association of German Development and Humanitarian Aid NGOs. And I've been working there since 6.5 years, and I prepared a presentation just to explain a little bit what VENRO is doing. It's basically the sister of PATHOS in Germany, so we do very similar work. Yes. So, yes, as I said, this is the organization. We have more members than PATHOS. We have currently 142 members. NGOs, they are very small, medium and big NGOs working in the humanitarian aid and development field. So, yes. Some are also working in the global education field of our members. And VENRO was founded in '95. Yes. Yes, so these are just a description of what our members are. They are church-based organizations, they are large organizations, small volunteer organizations. So kind of really a very diverse group, just as Bart mentioned before. He has a very diverse membership, and VENRO has as well. So this also plays a role in when you work with them, because they also have different ideologies. Church-based organizations versus more left-wing political activist organizations. So this is a very diverse and interesting group. So these are some of the the logos of our members, and so maybe Oxfam, Bart mentioned. So Oxfam Germany is also our member, and maybe you have come across some of the organizations, because some of them have also different registered organizations in other countries. So we have some criteria who can become a member. I think it's not that relevant, they have to be for today, but they have to have some experience in the field. They have to also, like PATHOS, I think you mentioned that they have to have some comply with some transparency standards, and accept also the policy documents that we have. Very similar also to PATHOS, what our tasks are. Basically, let's put it into two main categories. We do lobbying and advocacy, that's why we are based also in Berlin. So we are formulating political goals and then having parliamentary events or have having publishing papers or having one-to-one talks with decision makers to change policies. So this is the one main goal, and the other one is that we do qualification for our member organizations. So we offer training of development projects and programs for our members. So this is about the structure of Venro again, that we have the board with the different elected members, and then we have the head office where I'm working with, I think, around 30 colleagues. And we have these working groups. We have in total 14, I think, working groups. So these are working groups that, like Bart also mentioned, they are organized in a similar way, that they are working, they are just interested in the same field. They come together 3 times a year and discuss these topics. And I'm responsible for these 2 working groups, so dealing with impact orientation and also with strengthening civil society space of action, which means basically shrinking spaces, this whole topic. And these working groups, they work a lot on lobbying and also like training each other. And this is what the different things that we do, digital media, publications, events, that's the whole range of activities that we have. And we are also part of the international European network of networks that is called Concord. And just to give you some transparency as to how we are financed, this was 2020. I don't have the numbers yet for 2021, I'm sorry, but so yeah, just to show you that we try to have the membership contributions not go too small, so to keep some independence, but we still have also a very big branch that is publicly funded. Yeah, and Laura, you don't have time.
We're actually running on super bad of time, so you can quickly make the main points of the principles. And I'm gonna be very sorry to you, but it's complicated today. We started late and well, everything, you know. So maybe we can make a presentation afterwards when we are all starting the live meeting. So I'm very sorry for you guys because you won't be here for today's presentation, but we can record it and we can send it to you afterwards or send you the presentation. So as a final note, please be online and
okay, that's really good, but I can explain it in more detail maybe later. If you're interested, maybe or not, then it's also fine. So
just Google for sure.
Yes, okay, so very briefly, this is dealing with the quality of development projects of our member organizations. And it was a long process. We did it with the members together. It was very participatory. It took years, several years, because it was so participatory. We looked at the Istanbul Principles, which is the European or international set of principles for the quality of project work. And we had 6-7 working groups that were involved in it. And yes, what we achieved, I wanted to show you in the movie, because we basically set up these 8 guidelines. We produced this manual. It's here. I brought you some. Maybe you can give it around. This is in German, but I printed it also out in English. Not for everyone, but for some I printed out. You can have a look in case you are interested. So this is the manual. This is in German, but I have it in English as well. And I have a movie, but this is for later. I will show you the movie later. It's basically about these guidelines. So just to give you an idea, these are the 8 principles that we said. If the NGOs, our members, are working on human rights and social justice, gender justice, empowerment, ecological sustainability, transparency, equitable partnerships, knowledge exchange, and sustainable positive impacts, then the quality of their work is good. And then we define, I mean, it's more defined, but I can't go into detail about how we define it. So basically, yeah, we produce the manual that we look at. And now maybe one interesting point here is that it's on a voluntary basis. So they agreed upon the heads of our member organization agreed on this, but we don't have a kind of sanction system. So we don't have a system to check whether they are doing what they agreed upon. And I think this is very important. It's more about offering learning around this topic, but it's not like a kind of a sanction, or how you said it, it's a stamp you have to check if they are obliging. So yeah, then we offer capacity development, and I just brought some questions, but maybe we'll look at them later, because in our whole bubble, let's say, we are discussing a lot about post-colonialism and how racism and how this is part of our structures. And also now in Germany we have introduced the feminist foreign policy and feminist development policy. How does that go together with quality standards that were developed in the north only by us without our partner organizations? I mean, this like a lot of questions come to mind. So yes, thank you.